You want to look leaner and more defined, but where do you actually start? Today, we're breaking down how to know if you should lose fat first, build muscle first, or if you can do both. As we go throughout this episode, we're going to go into how to really decide your starting point and where to go from there. We're going to talk about if recomp is possible and what considerations you need to keep in mind. We're also going to be talking about the downsides of staying in limbo. So if you're in a place where you're switching between phases a little bit too often, as well as being able to really go over what to expect in each phase and going over timelines and strategies some more. So let's go ahead and dive into how to decide or how to figure out your starting point.
The first thing to look at when you are assessing your starting point is where are you at currently, which probably seems like no duh, but this is an important tidbit for us to take a look at so that you have a better understanding of what is the best thing for you to start with. And so when we look at your current body composition, are you going to be someone who is carrying an excess amount of body fat, or are you going to be someone who is maybe carrying more body fat than you would like, but you're also not carrying much muscle? Those would be kind of the two categories that we're looking at. Did you have other categories that you would think of?
Those would be the two main ones of just being more overweight and having more fat, and then the other one being more skinny fat. So you might still want to be more toned. Like if you find yourself saying, I want to be more toned, so you don't have a ton of fat to lose, then that would be the category of that skinny fat of really being able to get into that side.
My thought here is that how are people supposed to know between those things? Like you and I are looking at body composition every day and assessing, does someone need to be dieting more, or do they need to put on muscle tissue? Like what are some of the things that could be tangible for someone to say, okay, I'm skinny fat or I'm carrying excess body fat, for example, without going to get a DEXA scan or a bod pod to give them specifics on their body fat percentage?
I think a really simple way to go ahead and do it is to look up body fat percentage pictures, because there's normally going to be a chart for males and females to be able to showcase, hey, here's roughly what 15% body fat looks like, what 20%, 25%, and being able to use that as a guideline and not even just looking at it because you might perceive things differently for yourself, but even pulling up a recent check-in photo and putting it next to it. So you're not just viewing yourself of, hey, I'm viewing myself as way bigger or way smaller than I actually am. Pull up a picture next to that on your computer screen to really see, where do I fit in here?
And if you're going to be using a picture of yourself, I would encourage you to stand in front of a well-lit window. Place your phone, and you're facing the window, your phone is facing you. And you take a picture with that phone roughly at your waist height and being able to see from your feet to above your head so that you have an accurate depiction, because you could go into comparing those photos with some down lighting and it being extremely harsh, just poor setup for you, and being like, wow, I'm carrying a lot more body fat than I thought. And you're just setting yourself up for failure in that. And so if we're looking at those percentages, I would say for the individual who is identifying with being in the higher 20s or above, this would be an opportunity for you to get into a fat loss phase. Or I guess above 24%, let's say. If you identify with that, probably starting with a deficit is going to be your best option. If you are around 20 or slightly below when you're comparing those photos, it may be an opportunity for you to get into a building phase and building muscle. And I'm speaking most specifically here to women, as the body fat percentage is going to be different between male and female. I thought another practical application for assessing body fat in this situation, if you didn't want to look up the photos and you just wanted to get a assessment right this moment, is that if you can pinch a significant amount of soft tissue around your waist, or if your clothes are fitting tighter due to excess body fat rather than muscle, then getting into a deficit is the most logical first step. if you're already quite thin but lacking muscle tone and definition, this would be an opportunity for you to get into a muscle building phase. Or if you were to identify with feeling soft or deflated, I suppose, that would be an opportunity for you to get into a muscle building phase.
And I think outside of body composition, which is going to be a large part of it, and like we said, we analyze that all the time. So if you're listening throughout this episode, you get to the end of the episode and you're like, I still am not sure because I'm not able to view myself, or I don't feel like I am viewing myself correctly, that's where you can go ahead and reach out to us. We have a link in the show notes below, and you can reach out and we can be able to help you with that. But outside of just body composition, some other things you want to take in mind are like your training age and experience to really decide which way you should go.
Sure. And if you're in more of a novice or some other categories to this that we'll talk on the recomp section of all this, you may be able to be aligned with that holy grail of losing fat and building muscle simultaneously. And so if you're newer to the gym or are coming back to the gym, that may be an opportunity for you. But if you're a more advanced trainee and you have been in the gym, let's say 5, 7, 8, 10 plus years, then it's going to be extremely important for you to decide on a goal of either building muscle or losing body fat, as it's going to be a much more progressive and successful approach rather than trying to do both simultaneously like the more novice or newer lifters may have.
And the other thing that you need to take into consideration outside of just body composition and that training age and experience is going to be going into your hormonal health. A lot of times we hear things of just like calories in versus calories out. And if you're in a caloric deficit, then you're automatically going to lose weight. But hormones do play a big role in that. And that's something where women's hormones specifically are sensitive to both being in a place where you have very low or very high body fat levels. And so really being able to dig into that so that you're making sure, again, you're taking these considerations to really make the best decision. So it's not just, okay, I feel a little bit overweight today, I want to go ahead and go into a cut, because that's what we'll get into a little bit later of bouncing back and forth between those phases too often can really cause you to never see progress.
Sure. So I would say within the hormonal health is looking at the consistency to your menstrual cycle would be the first step here, just from a general day-to-day assessment of things. And then I would also look at your skin health. How is your sleep? How is your energy? Those different factors are all going to be playing a role within that hormonal function. And depending on those factors, this would be something where if you are not having a consistent menstrual cycle and your sleep and other biofeedback markers are not in a good position, this is certainly not a time for you to get into a calorie deficit. This would be a time for you to better nourish your body and get the foundation of how your body is functioning to a better position to take on muscle building or to take on fat loss. It would be in your best interest to focus just on the foundation and getting into a better spot there relative to trying to push for one of these specific goals that one of your foundational pieces within hormonal function is not in an adequate position.
So the bottom line here when it comes to the hormonal health is really just considering your health overall. So if being leaner would likely benefit your hormones and well-being, so if you do have a lot of extra body fat and that might be causing things to not be functioning correctly in your body, like starting with fat loss would be a great option. But if you're too lean for your own good, really prioritize muscle and overall nourishment first. And I really want to make a little side note to that. I know a lot of women specifically might feel like they have that last 5 to 10 pounds to lose. And that's where a lot of you might be, where it's not like you think you have 30, 40, 50 pounds to lose. You might be in that category, but I know from the women that I talk to, it's a lot of like, oh, that last 5 to 10 pounds. But really pursuing that last 5 to 10 pounds might end up putting you in a worse position and not actually able to see the results that you want to. And again, that's where it comes down to your body composition of you might just need more muscle. That's something that for myself, if you've been following along on Instagram, I've been doing a series called The Quiet Shift. And starting off, I really thought I just want to lose 10 pounds. But as I got into it, it was really about making sure that I was taking care of myself and I wasn't starting with a deficit just to lose 10 pounds, even though I felt uncomfortable in my body. It was something where I was really prioritizing sleep. I was prioritizing making sure I was consistent with my food, with my steps, getting into training a little bit more frequently. And from there, I was able to lose about 5 pounds without dieting, and then realized that looking at my my body composition, now that it was more rested and restored and it wasn't as inflamed and feeling so like puffy and just yucky personally on a day-to-day basis, then I realized I don't actually want to lose fat. I want to be able to have some more tone to my muscle and to be able to have some more shape to my body. And so really being able to look at things that way. And that's why I'm saying of not just making a day-to-day decision of I don't feel good today or I feel like I have more weight to lose. It's going to be really helpful to just follow a plan regardless of what plan it is, and really being able to take data from that before you're switching back and forth between different things. But that's where a lot of women get stuck, I would say, in that last 5 to 10 pounds of feeling like, oh, I need to keep pushing for this, when it might be that you just want some more muscle tone on your body.
Which is in line with the last thing that we want to make note of as we figure out where we want to start, is looking at the timeline of what's on the horizon for you. Where are you at in the year in which you're listening to this episode? When it's being recorded, we are in the thick of summer. We just started to peak into the 90s here in Ohio, and it is hot. And so if you were wanting to be dieted down for summer right now, you should have started 3 to 4 months ago. But if you're trying to get in shape for summer right now, it's going to be a tough battle, but possible, I suppose. But looking at your timeline and being able to really construct and give yourself a realistic timeline for what's on the horizon is going to be helpful. And probably leaning into what's going to motivate you the most at the start of this is likely best. But if you continue to rely on motivation throughout, you're going to be sadly let down, because that motivation is going to fade, and you're going to probably, if you decide to get into a deficit and you go for a little while, there's going to be a point where, oh my gosh, I've lost body fat, but I wish I had more muscle. And then you're going to want to flip-flop, which we'll get into at the towards the end of this episode to give you a better glimpse of like what really that is doing for you, and really how much it's pushing you back. But deciding at the beginning what's going to motivate you the most and setting a timeline that's realistic and gives you the space to really accomplish the goal that you have. And maybe you're thinking, as you're listening to this, of I have no idea how long it's going to take me to lose this amount of body fat, or for me to gain this amount of muscle mass that I desire. That's an opportunity for us to work with you. And like Sue said earlier, there's going to be a link in the show notes for you to reach out to us so that we can help you with that and give you more direction, and not have you in a position where you're trying to decide when you don't really know what the best option is.
A big thing that we do with clients is being able to figure out what their short versus their long-term goals are. Because if they're in a place where they're like their wedding, that's a great example of maybe their personal wedding is in a year. Then we really need to look at that. Okay, when do you have different events coming up for it? Do you have a bachelorette party? Do you have a bridal shower? Do you have any other thing going into that? And then really being able to look at that, because it might be like, well, I want to diet because my wedding's coming up. But if it's in a full year, we might be in a place where we want to be able to be at maintenance or being able to build muscle towards the beginning of that. And then being able to go into the diet where you still have leeway going into the events that you have, instead of being in a place where you're like, I want to go into an all-out build, and then you're scrambling when you're getting close to this event you forgot about, and you're like, oh wait, I want to cut right now. So I think it's really helpful to look at your schedule, look at what you have coming up, because you might have like 3 trips coming up. They might not all be vacations, but maybe you have a vacation, a work trip, and then you're going to see family. Those can all throw you off. If you're planning to be in a deficit, that could maybe not be the best time for you. Is it still possible to do it when you are traveling, when you have those events coming up? Yes, we've had many clients and ourselves do that, but we really want to think about what is the most probable, what's going to fit into your life best, and what can you really stick to? Because at the end of the day, the consistency is what is going to help you to be able to get to where you want to go. Low reps is best.
High reps is best.
Fruit is so
it's
good.
Terrible for you.
You should lift heavy.
High reps,
carbs
low
are
weight.
needed.
Keto
Squats
for
are
life.
bad for your
Squats
knees.
are great.
You
for your
should
knees.
squat ass to
Knees over
grass.
toes.
It's fine. It fits my macros.
It's for idiots.
When there are so many mixed messages going around, it's hard to know what you should even do or focus on. But that's exactly where Physique Development one-on-one coaching comes in. You might have heard of online coaching or even hired a coach before, but we believe in teaching you the why behind what we do while truly taking your life into consideration. We want to train, educate, and empower you to reach your goals and help you to stop spinning your wheels and just finally feel good. And hey, we're here to help you look good too. You need you. Your health is your wealth. So join Physique Development and let us be the last coach you ever need.
I thought it would be helpful to share with you all some client examples. As you guys, if you have been listening to the podcast for a long time, know that I like to use the client testimonials that I'm not allowed to share photos of. And this is the best way for me to share it, so I can just talk about it here. So client case number one, we're going to call her Jane. Jane was 34 years old when she came to work with us, and she had a significant amount of body fat, roughly around 35%, and had very little weightlifting background. Her primary goal was to get in a healthier position and improve her body composition, but most specifically, be able to enjoy time playing with her kiddos. We decided to focus on fat loss right off the jump. In her first 12 weeks of dieting, she cleaned up her nutrition and maintained a fairly moderate calorie deficit. And we had her strength training just 3 days per week. Remember, she's coming off of a time where she was not resistance training. She was training 0, and now we have her training 3 days per week. Now, with that training, she was able to increase her muscle mass and also lose the body fat. She had that perfect best of both worlds scenario within the recomp that we would see within more overweight beginners. She lost 15 pounds in 3 months and brought her body fat percentage down to 28%. Her strength went up week after week within the lifts that we had her performing over that 12-week period. She looked tighter and more defined. It was not simply from just the aesthetic perspective that she got better. Of course, we talked about the body fat percentage coming down, but her blood pressure and her energy levels also improved. And her body was really set to push into a muscle building phase as we concluded the diet in the 12 weeks. And the beautiful thing is because her energy was improving and because she had already seen so much progress from a strength standpoint within her workouts over the first 12 weeks, she was really excited to get into this building phase. And if I was to have presented to her when she came to us, the building phase right when she started, she would have been like, no, I have no interest in doing this. I want to lose body fat. And so it really just set her up for so much more success to work through these phases. And it was really cool to see the great progress that she had.
And I think the key lesson to take away from Jane's case is if you have quite a bit of fat and not much muscle, being able to go through that cut first is going to set you up for more success. So it gave Jane an immediate win in that confidence, and again, made her more confident and more motivated to tackle that muscle building and be able to do it from a better starting point. Because if you do have a bunch of excess fat and then you go into muscle building, can you still see muscle being built? Yes, but that's also harder visually to see when you do have that fat covering it up. So it was the best of both worlds for her to be able to go through those different stages and then really be able to thrive when she was in the muscle building phase and get that tone that she wanted overall. But she was stuck for a long time of what to do first because she wasn't really sure.
The second client case that I have to share with you, her name is Sarah, and she was 28 years old when she had come to us. And this is looking at it from a different perspective. She was not overweight in the way that Jane was. She was fairly petite. She was weighing roughly around 115 pounds at 21% body fat. So she looked skinny. If you were to see her on the street, you would have said she is a skinnier or leaner individual overall, but did not have the muscular tone that she was really wanting to have. She wanted more shape to her arms and to her shoulders and to her glutes, and to give her more muscular definition, but also just being more athletic in general. She would describe herself as being more skinny fat. And with our approach here, we started with a building phase for her. And in that building phase, we made a very slight surplus. I believe I started with 100-calorie surplus from what we had established as her calorie maintenance to start with. And then we ended up hanging around 250 calories above her maintenance for the extended period of time. So over a 16-week period or 4-month period, her weight went from 115 pounds to 122 pounds. And so her weight was up by 7 pounds, but she honestly looked leaner throughout the process of gaining that weight. As she added more muscle density, it gave her more shape to her body, and she felt so much more confident as we built that muscle, and she was able to feel far more energetic and just having a lot more life to herself on a day-to-day basis. Her confidence was oozing out of her after this 16-week process. And this allowed for us to go through this building. And then we went back to maintenance for a little bit of time. And then we went back into a building phase where she again added, I think, 4 or 5 more pounds and continued to look better over that time frame. And so we're really looking at, I think it was 4 months to start, and then we had 3 months in there of being at maintenance, and then we did another 4-month building phase. So almost at a year, but over that time frame, although her scale weight ended up being, I think, 10 or 12 pounds above where she had started, she looked significantly better with that added muscle tissue that we were able to add over that time.
Yeah, and initially she thought that she should diet more to get more definition, but it was something where cutting further would have just made her look a smaller version of the same shape. She still wouldn't have had that tone that she really wanted and to really look fit, which is, we hear that a lot too, of like, I want to look like I lift. I want to look fit. And that's where a lot of times people get into that skinny or skinny fat and they think, I just need to lose more weight to see that muscle. And it's like, the muscle needs to be there for you to see it. So being able to add that muscle, even though the scale is going up, you can look leaner. And also, the more muscle that's on your body, the more calories you can burn. So that's a win-win in my book of just being able to eat more food and look better.
Are you sick and tired of your glutes not growing? Turning around in the mirror and seeing a board for a booty? I've been coaching for nearly a decade, helping thousands of women reach their goals. The most common goal? Grow my glutes. Women in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and even 60s able to grow their glutes with the guidance of my training programs. And for all this time, I've kept my best glute growth secrets only for my one-on-one clients. And that changes today. We just released our 12-week glute growth program in the PD training app. It is a 4-day program with exercise and volume adjustments every 3 weeks. You can easily access the program through our app and track every single workout. Each exercise will have a detailed video teaching you exactly how to perform each and every movement. And guess what? I am no longer gatekeeping. I'm sharing every single one of my best glute growth secrets inside this program because you are awesome and I want you to have this program. I'm going to give you $25 off, making it a fraction of what you spent at Starbucks this past month. Use code POD. The link to purchase will be in the description. Now let's get back to the show. So we've hinted at this a couple of times through the episode thus far, but let's give you guys some of the details and specifics on how body recomp is even possible and who it is really possible for.
So recomps are very, very popular for beginners. So if you're new to proper resistance training, your body is going to be hyper responsive. So early on, even in a calorie deficit, an untrained person's muscles can grow because the stimulus is so new to them. So beginners, or if you're someone returning after a very long break off of training, often experience what we often call newbie gains. So someone who's never lifted might start dieting and lifting and actually gain lean mass while dropping fat at the same time. So obviously that would be everyone's goal if they could just add muscle and lose fat at the same time. But as you become more advanced within training, it gets harder and harder to do both at the same time. And it's much more efficient to pick one direction, go in it. And then if you need to go in the other direction, picking that direction and going in it, but not flipping and back and forth between the two. So this is why a novice who might be like moderately overweight can appear to transform very quickly, and they shed pounds while getting stronger and more muscular in parallel. And this is actually something that happened to me of when I got into lifting and really got into lifting in college, is I was able to go through like these newbie gains. Even though I'd been doing sports growing up, I'd never really followed a strict training program and like tracked anything with my food ever before. And so I was able to experience this. It was the best time of my life. Not really, but really being able to see those results. And it was very motivating as well. And I think that's the thing of people get that feeling when they start. And then when they get into it, they're like, I'm not able to see these same results. And they're like waiting for that motivation or that same excitement. And it's like, you just need to choose one direction and you'll be able to see those results. It's just going to look a little bit different.
Yes. So you have the two groups that Sue spoke on within the beginners and those who may have been more detrained. You touch on that, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So then the next group that I would be speaking on or would say this is possible for is more overweight or obese trainees. Now, this is similar to the Jane case study that we shared with you just a little bit ago, where you have such a significant excess of energy and resources for your body to use as fuel. And so this is an opportunity to be in a calorie deficit alongside having adequate protein consumption to where body fat can be lost and muscle can be built. Now, there was a study that I made a note of here, and this is in overweight men specifically. And so they were put on a high protein diet, which they had categorized this as 1 gram per pound of body weight. And then they had intense exercise for 4 weeks, and they lost 10.5 pounds over the 4 weeks of pure body fat, while gaining 2.5 pounds of muscle, where the low protein group had the same exercise regimen, but they did not have the same protein consumption. But that group lost the same amount of body fat, but gained no muscle. And so this is feedback that you can train as hard as you would like, but not having the adequate nutrients in place, most specifically the protein, is going to be problematic in your pursuit of building muscle. This is one of many examples through research and through our coaching. We've had many thousands of anecdotal examples of this, where the protein is going to be a massive driver in your ability to lose body fat, gain muscle, or if you have the ability to recomp, it's still going to be a huge driver for you.
And the other category of people are going to be like the unoptimized intermediates, which this is honestly where we get a lot of people in this group. And this is kind of a gray zone of people who might not be beginners when it comes to time. Like maybe they've been training for a few years. It's not like they're brand new to the gym, but their training or diet was never actually structured well. So if you're at the intermediate level, but you've never consistently eaten enough protein or trained with progressive overload, you might still achieve body recomp when you finally get those ducks in a row. So essentially your body responds as if it's new to doing things properly and being able to have that in place. And one thing I really want to talk about when it comes to recomp is, I know it might sound like this is the golden thing, I want this to happen, but I also find people getting discouraged when they're going through it because they're so focused on the scale. And they're like, well, the scale hasn't really changed. And that's why I just urge you so much, no matter what your goal is, to not just focus on the scale. Look at pictures. And if you're curious on how to take proper progress photos, we'll have a link down below of exactly how we encourage clients to take progress photos, how Alex and I take them ourselves. But being able to take progress photos, being able to take measurements, and also just paying attention to how your clothes are fitting, because that is such a huge determinant of how things are actually going, as well as, of course, like how your energy is, how your focus is. Those all matter. But when we're really looking at these things of still being able to look at not just the scale weight, looking at pictures, looking at measurements, and taking in that full picture so that you don't get discouraged by being like, well, the scale isn't moving in the way that I thought it would, because we might see those changes still because the scale isn't telling you the breakdown of everything that's happening. So that's where you want to be able to take those extra things into consideration.
Yeah, that would be one of the requirements, I would say, for a recomp phase is having more tools to measuring your progress outside of just the scale readings themselves. Other requirements that I had put were being in a very slight deficit, roughly. This is not going to be the same for everyone, but a slight deficit being 250 calories from the maintenance or eating at maintenance. And if your goal is to get into a body recomp, I would not start with the deficit. I would probably start with maintenance to allow for you to establish the baseline, and then also to start the process from the most energetic place that you possibly can. I feel like going into that slight deficit from the jump just takes one of your tools out of the toolbox before you even know if it was needed or not. So I would start at maintenance. And then the high protein consumption that we talked about, 1 gram per pound of body mass is going to be the starting point. I honestly would drive this up even higher to 1.2 or to 1.4, or even 1.5, depending on your digestion, because with the protein consumption, this is going to be a very satiating macronutrient for you to have in place, as well as extremely beneficial to your overarching goal of losing fat and building muscle. And so having a good quantity of protein in place with your total calorie goal is going to be tremendously helpful. And the last thing that was it. The high protein consumption, the very well structured progressive overload within your training periodization, and the slight calorie deficit or being at maintenance, and then being very patient and having more tools for monitoring overall.
Are there any downsides to going through a recomp phase?
I feel like we touched on these a little bit throughout already, but the first one would be just diminishing returns. And for individuals who are more advanced, it's just not going to be a pursuit that you should probably venture down. I would just set a goal and go after one or the other. The other thing would be what we already talked about within the measurements and getting a little discouraged from a motivation standpoint. It's going to be a slower overall progress in comparison to going into a direct cut or a direct build. And then the last thing, which I think is probably the larger downside for a lot of people, is the near perfection that you have to make this goal a reality overall. You're trying to make 2 processes that are not necessary for your body to accomplish. Like in the internal function of your body is surviving. It's not, well, I need to look better and be able to have more muscle, or I need to lose body fat, unless it's something that's going to improve your overall health to see that fat loss, right? And so trying to do both of those things and thinking that you're going to be able to be on point 70 or even 80% of the time and think that you can accomplish 2 very difficult goals is a little naive. And so I would say that that's a downside. To be almost perfect within all of your factors is difficult for everyone, but could be something that is just too much for some individuals, where it's like life is not that predictable to have everything be near perfect.
I couldn't agree more with that. And really, there's no wrong choice with deciding of should I lose fat first or build muscle first. It's just the one that fits you best right now. So again, if you're unsure of what phase you should be in, what you should focus on first, you can go ahead and hit the link down in the show notes, or you can shoot us a DM on Instagram and just say, hey, I just listened to episode 226 of the podcast, and I'd love to be able to have some help of really figuring out what I should do, because you might feel like you've been stuck kind of flopping between both of them and not really seeing those results. And that's what we'd love to be able to help you out with.
Recomp is all fine and dandy, but staying in limbo is going to be the worst thing that you can do for yourself. And I want to give some context to why this is the case, because I know that many of you can likely relate to this, because you get caught up in the immediate emotion of what today has brought for you. Your pants not fitting the right way today, or this shirt being a little bit too snug, or seeing a specific angle of your body and saying, oh my gosh, I don't have any muscle. I need to get into a bulk right this second. And allowing for yourself to be dictated by these emotions is causing you to make almost zero progress, if not regressing, because of the constant limbo or yo-yo to your approach that you're taking. And this is coming from someone who has dealt with this. I've worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of clients who have also dealt with this, because it is easy. The easy route here is to listen to your emotions and let that drive your decision making, because you don't have the data to support what you're wanting to do. And by sticking to something over a legitimate timeline, we'll say the minimum to stick to something would be 8 weeks. And if we're trying to build muscle or we're trying to lose greater body fat, it's going to be 12, 16, or even 20 weeks to get these things accomplished. That is going to get boring. There's going to be a loss of motivation. There's going to be a stall in your progress along the way at some point, for one reason or another. And you have to be able to have the the wherewithal or the ability to stick with it during that time. Because if you end up being in a spot where you are getting into a surplus for the first time, you're so excited to build muscle, and then in the first 4 weeks you gain 4 pounds of muscle, or not 4 pounds of muscle. You gain 4 pounds of body weight, and that is scary for you. You feel a little bit softer. You're not seeing the same lines in your body. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I don't actually want to do this. I need to get into a deficit. And by getting into the deficit, you get into a very aggressive deficit because you want to peel off the body fat as fast as possible so you can get back into the building phase. But each time as you enter the building phase, you're also starting that off aggressively. And so you're just in this constant back and forth of not really making any progress. And so where I would encourage you to create the timeline that we talked about and really put yourself in a position where I am doing this specific goal for a minimum of 8 weeks. And I say that with such a grain of salt because whatever you're trying to accomplish is not going to only be 8 weeks, but 8 weeks may be enough of a time horizon to where you can still see the light at the end of the tunnel. And if you were to tell yourself, I'm going to do this for 16 weeks, or I'm going to do this for 24 weeks, for example, that light at the end of the tunnel is too far away for you to feel any urgency to stick to your protocols and to show up on a day-to-day basis. And so if you need to break it down into 8-week blocks or even 4-week blocks, that is going to be an approach that's the most beneficial for you over the long haul. And this is also why I think that working with someone one-on-one is so beneficial because of the data collection that we have within our one-on-one clients, where we're tracking so many different factors to allow for them to see the grander picture of it all and not to get hyperfixated on singular factors like the scale or how their pants fit a specific day, and being able to understand that there are so many contributing factors to those two things that we cannot just make our decisions off of those singular factors. We have to look at how our sleep is going, where our nutrition is at, where are you at within your menstrual cycle, how are you recovering from your training, what type of training are you currently in. And the list goes on, but giving that context allows for you to take the goal that's too close to your eyes and you're only focusing on one specific factor, and being able to zoom out to see the contribution of everything and seeing also the things that are improving in a time where maybe the singular factor is not, because you may be in a spot where your scale weight is plateauing, for example, whether it be in a dieting phase or a building phase, but then there are other factors that are improving in that time that if you weren't tracking them, you may be unaware. You may have your skin improving. The physique photos may be improving. Your sleep may be improving, your energy, your digestion, a lot of these different factors that are going to be important for them to be optimized or improved for you to lose the body fat or gain the muscle. That is the priority for that moment. But if we're not tracking those things, one, we don't have something that we're like, okay, I'm getting better at this and I am feeling more motivated or encouraged to keep going. And so by having the multiple factors, we have greater opportunity to have encouragement, to have motivation, to continue on the path that we're currently on. And the less factors, the less opportunity we have for things to highlight for success. And so by being in limbo, you're only doing a disservice to yourself, and you are ruminating so much more in your head that you don't have to deal with. You are putting yourself in a spot where you are likely belittling yourself and talking down to yourself on a day-to-day basis because you are wanting the thing that is not occurring at that moment. If you're wanting to lose body fat, well, I don't have enough muscle. And if you're trying to build muscle, well, I have too much body fat. And that is a very slippery slope that no one should be dealing with. But unfortunately, so many people are constantly dealing with this. And again, this is coming from a place of, I've dealt with this, I've worked through it for myself, and I've also helped so many clients also work through this and get to a place of being far more at peace with what they're working on, and then finally making progress for the first time in their life because they have finally focused on a singular goal.
Awesome. Well, go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, send this to a friend that you think would really benefit from it. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That would be super helpful. And we'll catch you in the next one.
See you guys.
Bye.